Hello folks, we're going to talk about Record of Ragnarok today. Now, unfortunately, even if it's blatantly within fair use, Netflix has a problem with anyone using even a slight image of a slight trailer of a slight property. So, puppies? First and foremost, I had one persisting thought going into this.
Hey, you guys. What if the movie sucks?
I mean, this is not trying to be some deep philosophical insight into the human condition, it's just the dark tournament on steroids. You have to go out of your way to make it suck. Don't get me wrong, it'll have low points most definitely, but taking the source material and adapting it into some travesty of mankind, I don't even think Rian Johnson could mess up that badly. So just what is this delightful little anime I'm recommending? The idea is all the gods are real, except maybe the Judeo-Christian god, we don't know yet, and they've decided to hit the reset button on humanity. Brunhilde, the leader of the Valkyries, objects, calls Zeus a nerd, and provokes all the gods into Ragnarok. From here, astute viewers will start noticing certain things from mythology and history aren't quite right. This anime plays pretty fast and loose with history. It's not nearly as bad as Final Fantasy, which will just paste cool names from different religion stories the devs heard that sounded cool onto their characters. More like all the stories we know in real life are mostly correct, save for one or two details that got muddled through time. And that's really all the story there is as far as broad strokes go. The rest revolves around individual character backstories, which is something I'm noticing a lot in this new tournament genre. Check out Kengan for another example. We really don't learn much about the majority of the character's history until it's their turn to fight. Then we get a couple of swings and start the flashbacks. It makes Record of Ragnarok predictable, even where they are in the comics, but I wouldn't say boring. Now, while I debate with myself whether or not to go into the source comics, I'll go ahead and say they're only at the end of 3 fights by the end of the first season. Which, if I was trying to get people hooked on the series, is a great place to end. Thor vs. Lubu is a great setup for what to expect from the series. Adam vs. Zeus gives us Adam, enough said. And Poseidon vs. Sasaki Kojiro gives us history's greatest loser and ends on a hopeful note for humanity. It isn't until the 2 most recent fights that I've stopped caring as much about the characters. Zirafuku is a petulant child, Buddha is an angsty teen, and as much as people want to jump on Hercules for being a typical shonen protagonist, it's Shiva who powers up with friendship.
Or maybe the real seal of Orichalcos was the friends we made along the way.
God damn it! I knew that girl's friendship speeches were gonna kill me one day!
All is not perfect, of course, it never is. Heimdall's mouth never moves and it just bugs the hell out of me. They also have random bits of 3D animation, but they were smart enough to keep it to a minimum. Still jarring though when it randomly appears. I don't think Ares' voice is good enough. The image I have of Ares and the voice they gave him don't match up in my head. Opening and closing themes were kinda bland. That's if I'm really digging for something negative to say, but I do want to touch on something.
Let me tell you something. You know what really grinds my gears? You, America.
So the internet has decided the animation is a travesty because there's just too gosh darn many still frames during animation. And while yes, I do agree more movement is always better, especially in a fighting anime, people using hyperbole to call it a PowerPoint is just petty. When you want to say an anime is just a bunch of still frames playing one after the other, I'm thinking Way of the House Husband. That wasn't even supposed to be a spectacle fighter and I still hated the animation choice in that one. And I fully understand there's a difference between the two shows, but
I don't care.
it is not as apocalyptically bad as some of y'all are trying to make it sound, though I will admit it could have been done better. Anyway, there's been a couple changes, but I'd be nitpicking. For example, Adam is now almost as tall as Eve. They also cut to the audience a bit more, and I guess what you'd call generic humans get a little bit more to cheer. Well, yeah, I guess they did take out the scene where the incubus whips out his junk for Brunhilde to try and rape her. I can understand, though, why that was omitted. At the end of the day, the show is beautiful in simplicity. It's a spectacle fighting series with just enough plot to explain things and keep you invested. Brunhilde is probably who'd be considered the main protagonist with Goal as her sidekick, and neither character is ever a chore to endure. On the contrary, I find Brunhilde to be quite relatable. She doesn't have a combative role, so far anyway, but more the administrative role. Her frustrations and responses are surprisingly relatable for a demigoddess trying to save humanity, and I'd go so far as to say she seems more human than divine. The series also does a really good job getting you to root for humanity, even where they're at in the source material. Adam is humanity's father and lives up to the role. Kojiro is a great underdog to root for. Lubu was kinda boring if I'm being honest. I've already touched on it, but I found the fights entertaining to watch regardless of a couple of unwanted still shots. The majority of the English voice acting is on point as well, no complaints besides Ares. There you have it, Record of Ragnarok, highly recommend it. I do believe it is a classic case of the book is better than the movie. All the people, I'm going to talk about it again just one more time. All the people out there who are just going over the top saying, "Oh my god, this is trash, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to the history of the world," because the animation had a couple still frames that they didn't want. It reminds me of, like, somebody complaining... What's a good analogy? Maybe it's not a good analogy, but I think you'll understand what I'm getting at. It reminds me of, like, a teenager, spoiled rotten teenager, who goes to the Christmas tree and opens up a gift to see it's an Xbox One, but it's not an Xbox One, what's the new one, XS, something like that, and then he starts throwing a temper tantrum, you know, like, "Fuck you, Mom, you didn't give me the right one." Yeah, that's kind of what I feel with these people complaining about the animation in Record of Ragnarok, because it's not bad animation, it just could have been better. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things in life could have been better, but I'm satisfied with what we got. I think you'll be satisfied with it. Go watch Record of Ragnarok. In the meantime, y'all go out there and treat each other like you have some sense.